Jesus of Nazareth was many, many things. Carpenter's son, rabbi, teacher, healer, Messiah. But one thing Jesus of Nazareth was not, at least not very good at, was being a marketer. He did not know how to market. And we hear that in the story today. Because any good business person, no matter whether they're running a big corporation or a small business, no matter whether or not they run their own law firm or, say, the principal for a school or a teacher in a classroom or a conductor for a choir, anybody involved in any kind of business knows there are 4 P's to any good business practice. There's place, there's promotion, there's product, and there's price. The 4 P's. And Jesus struck out on all 4 of those. As I said, place. He chose a place that was the epitome of wealth, luxury, good times. To tell the truth about who he was and what he was about, and what his followers needed to be about. Caesarea Philippi was not the place for the honest-to-God message about what Messiah meant. It just wasn't. It wasn't going to play there. Strike one. He didn't choose the right place. Not in the midst of all of that wealth, lushness, debauchery, good times. Not when you're standing in front of a temple that's been dedicated with all of its marble and gold to God, Emperor Caesar Augustus. Not when you're just a few feet away from the shrine to Pan that just gushes forth all kinds of water and all kinds of images. Do you start telling people the truth about the gospel? So scratch place off the list. Promotion? That ragtag band of fishermen, tax collectors, and all the others, plus those women, not a one of them would have ever won Salesperson of the Year. Not a single one. If you're going to get your message, think about Nike. Think about, I don't know, Tesla. When they want to sell their product, do they go to some smelly old fisherman? No, they go to the biggest celebrity. They don't go to the third string of any kind of Bush League team. They go to the quarterback, the pitcher, the catcher, most valuable player. That wasn't who Jesus used to get his message out. So strike two. Promotion. Didn't do it. Third P, product. Okay, yes, he did talk about if you follow in Jesus' way, it's the realm of God, it's the kingdom of God. But if you're living under the Roman kingdom, the Roman Empire, and Caesar's face is on every coin, Caesar's name is on every building and street, Caesar's military can march into your land and take it over, some kind of esoteric kingdom, realm, reign of God doesn't sell. It's not a good, tangible product. Strike three. And finally, price. Price. He really struck out on that one. Price? Did you hear what the price is? Did you hear in that what he said to Peter? Actually, not just to Peter and not just to the disciples. He said to whatever crowd had gathered around him. The price of all of this? It's the cross. It's your life, my life, our lives. That's the deal. That's the deal. The price is your life. And the price is to take up that cross, that instrument of violence and suffering that Rome used all the time to strike terror in the lives of the people they occupied. Now, I grew up thinking that Jesus Christ was the only person ever crucified. That is completely wrong. The Romans did it all the time. They adopted it from the Persians, but they finessed it so that crucifixions were a public event. Because if you crucified the leader of a revolt, that would strike terror in the lives of everyone else. And sometime either 4 or 5 years before Jesus' birth or 4 or 5 years after, the Roman legion had gotten fed up with the Jews up in Galilee, marched their legion into Galilee and crucified 3,000 people. Do you know how long that would take to do that? 3,000 people. And when there was a slave revolt of Spartacus, Rome lined the Appian Way with crosses. Jesus was not unique. And he also knew that anybody listening to him, hearing him say, "Take up your cross," why would they do that? Why would they do that? Nobody in their right mind would do that. But that's the price. That's the price. And I think it's very important, my friends, especially in our time and especially in this year, that we as Christians wrestle with this cross stuff. Because you know as well as I do, it is being used in a whole lot of ways right now. It is being used by a particular political candidate who promises the followers that we won't let all those bad people, quote, tear down the cross of Christ. My friends, one of the things about the cross was that by his willingness to stand up for justice, to stand up for the outsiders, to do what he did, to cry for peace in the midst of violence, to do all of that, and to be willing to go the distance, the complete distance, to death on that cross. Because that's what happens to people who stand up for justice. Whether you're living in the Roman Empire or any place else. That he redeemed, in the words of the wonderful call to worship that you guys just sang, he redeemed the world through that cross by making an instrument of violence and terror into a sign of life and love that even death could not destroy. That's what that cross means. That's what it means. And my friends, if you and I don't start finding our voices to talk about what the cross of Jesus Christ means, we have no right to gather as a church and call ourselves Christian. Because our silence is deafening. Because there are lots of people in this world right now saying what the cross of Jesus Christ means. And for them it means violence, it means nationalism, it means hatred, it means division. It means my way is better than your way. And if we maintain our silence, and by we, I don't just mean the preacher. I mean we, all of us, sitting in this room, singing these songs, hearing this gospel, then we're giving in to that violence. It is no different, my friends, than what this church finally decided to do in 1994 when we voted to be open and affirming of LGBTQ persons. When the church was involved in that conversation, people said, we don't really need to go on record for being open and affirming because everybody knows we're welcoming. Everybody knows we're warm and fuzzy. We're good people. We like everybody. Until finally, the message began to get through that if we were silent in that time, the thunder and the condemnation of LGBTQ people at that time was going to be the last word about what Christianity thought about persons of various orientations and identities. Silence is not golden. And it is not neutral. Not now. Not now. It wasn't in the 1990s when this church finally went on record, First Church in Santa Fe, First Church in the Southwest Conference of the UCC, of being open and affirming. But if we'd remain silent, we let others get the last word. If we remain silent about what Christianity means and what the cross of Jesus Christ means, then we're letting violence, hatred, and division define Christianity. Take up that cross. And in case we need some language about that, three ideas, at least what things I believe about what that cross symbolizes. Number one, it symbolizes a God who understands suffering. I like Bette Midler a lot, but she got it completely wrong in that song of about 3 decades ago about God who keeps distance, who from a distance sees us. The God of Christianity is a God who got down and dirty. From that wet diaper all the way to the cross. And so when you and I and this world are in the midst of suffering, either personal suffering, loss, despair, depression, all of those kinds of things, violence, we know we're not alone. Because the one in whom we have our trust is the one who did not keep distance, but became incarnate. The wisdom of all that came to me when I was a high school student reading Elie Wiesel's Night for the first time. His book about being a 14-year-old in the concentration camp of the Nazis and the horror of that time. And Wiesel he managed to survive. None of his family did. He managed to survive. He wrote his book Night about that horrific experience. And in one part in the book he talks about 3 people in the camp being hung, 2 men and 1 12-year-old boy, for some minor infraction. And the 2 men died immediately on the gallows. But the 12-year-old boy, he was too light. He wasn't heavy enough for his neck to be broken. And so he was hanging from the gallows for 3 hours. And the people in the camp, including Elie Wiesel, had to walk by him in his agony. And Wiesel tells the story that as he walked by and saw this 12-year-old in the throes of death, he heard the man behind him say to the man next to him, "Where is God? Where is God?" And the man's companion said, "He's up there. He's up there on those gallows." Leave it to a good Jew to tell Christians what their faith is about. the God we trust, the name we bear as a united Church of Christ, is the one who knows suffering. That's what the cross means. The second thing the cross means, at least to me, when you see pictures of Jesus on the cross, He's not hunkered down. He's not like this. His arms are spread out. And at least some people interpret that as His embrace of this entire world. This entire world. Because this whole world suffers. This whole world cries. This whole world can feel abandoned. Individually, as nations, all of those things. The cross of Christ should not be a dividing rod, but a sign of God's love for this whole world. And one final image. And that is, as I said earlier, for the Romans and for anybody living under Rome in that time, crosses were signs of violence I cannot even imagine. Terror, division. I have power, you don't. My emperor is more powerful than all of your gods. And if you don't believe that, then that cross is for you. Violence, hatred, division. That was the symbol of the cross. But in the story of Jesus Christ, that image was transformed. And the cross became a sign of God's love. And a sign that death and violence and fear and hatred and division and all those things that it's being used for now were overcome by that love. So when you hear people talking about Christianity, when you hear them despairing the cross or using it as a way of violence, can we have enough courage to say, that's not the Jesus Christ I follow? That's not the cross I take up. That's not my understanding of what this Christian thing is about. Take up your cross and follow, Jesus told them. And He may have meant that literally, but He also may have meant it figuratively. Because it's not easy breaking the silence about what this Christian faith means. But if we don't do it, who will? Are we willing to be silent in the face of violence and division and hatred? Or will we take up that cross and tell the truth about what it really means? I told you, these passages get harder the further we get into Lent. But I offer you that challenge, and I take it myself. Take up your cross, He said, and follow me. Follow me in the ways of life and of love that even death could not destroy, even violence cannot destroy. Follow me. Thanks be to God. Amen. Because this sermon changed in the middle of the week, after the bulletin was printed, the song I invite us to sing now, the hymn, is number 224, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. And I invite us to join together in singing the first two and last verses. It's number 224, 224, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross, verses 1, 2, and 4.